Some more. All right, that's good. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahamsa Parvajaka Ashtotar Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajaka Acharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 10th day of April 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in chapter 6 entitled Dhyāna-yoga, the yoga of meditation, text number 35. Near the top of page 288. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asankshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagena Chagrihyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asankshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagena Chagrihyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asankshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagena Chagrihyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asankshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagena Chagrihyate. Tapas. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asankshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagena Chagrihyate. Chad. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asankshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagena Chagrihyate. Want to try? Not yet. Okay. Any, someone online?
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Asankshayam Mahabaho
Asankshayam Mahabaho
Manodurni Graham Chalam
Mano Durnigraham Chalam
Abhyasena Tukaunteya
Abhyasena Tukaunteya
Vairagyena Chagrihyate.
Vairagena Chagrihyate. Word by words. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Personality of Godhead, said, Asankshayam, undoubtedly, Mahabaho, O mighty armed one, Manaha, the mind, Durnigraham, difficult to curb, Chalam, flickering, Abhyasena, by practice, Tu, but Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Vairagena, by detachment, Cha, also, Grihyate, can be so controlled. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna said, Almighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Purport. Page 288. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the Personality of Godhead. But at the same time, the Lord suggests that by practice and detachment it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the Supersoul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical, because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called pareshanubhuti, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Kṛṣṇa is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, Arjuna has expressed his doubt that he can follow this process that Krishna has outlined. If you recall, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, it requires going to a lonely place and drilling the respiration, withdrawing the senses from their objects, means to basically you're going to be way away from the sense of the objects, but you need to also withdraw your mind from them because there's memories that you have to try to purge. And sitting in a certain way, focusing the eyes between the eyebrows, and basically just doing battle with the mind and the senses, which are going to pull you this way and that way. So, as Prabhupada points out, it's a very rare soul who can even undertake this process seriously, and even a rarer soul who can succeed. So it's obviously not for the masses of people. But the masses of people need it. Each one of us is a spirit soul. Each one of us has turned away from Krishna and become conditioned. And who knows how long we've been here, going through the species till the end of the creation, where everything is annihilated. You know, sometimes we think. Of course, we have the nuclear weapons now, so we don't have to really imagine what would happen. Everything will be burned up and blasted, and a horrific scene, just on this earth, if that happens, which it may. But even without that, at a certain point, the whole universe is destroyed by fire and flood, and everything. There's nobody living anymore, at least no organisms as we know them now, and everything gets roaring back into the body of Mahavishnu for a long time. And there we are. We're not dreaming. We're completely unconscious, but we're still alive. And eventually, we get sent out again by the glance of Mahavishnu, and Lord in a specific universe, and Lord Brahma is there to try to arrange for the repopulation of the universe. It takes a long trouble and time, And there we are again, picking up where we left off. Could be a human body, could be a subhuman body, could be a superhuman body, could be a deva's body. But the thing is, it's a tragedy, really, how the soul, who is divine by nature, who is blissfully engaged in the service of Krishna, somehow or other becomes curious about trying to be Krishna or compete with Krishna, and we turn away and we're sent into this material world. So, the practice in this age is centered on the chanting of the holy name. This is the great benediction for this age. But to really succeed, there are so many do's and don'ts, as we've been discussing lately. There's so much of it. It's a discipline, but the rewards are great, even in the beginning stage. Even the neophyte stage, you become, how should I put it? Less prone to depression and more enlivened. And there's always another festival coming on. Prabhupada set up the temples in such a way that there's a festival every morning and every evening. when I joined in Brooklyn, which admittedly was really a happening temple at that time, one of the few. The most happening temple was L.A., because there, at that point in time, 73, I think Vishnu Jan Maharaj was there, and Dhanavir Maharaj was there, and he describes it in one of his books, Dhanavir Maharaj. Devotees were joining every day. Every day, you can imagine, And they had the facility, they had these buildings across the street, they had, plenty of room to put everyone, men and women. So anyway, and there was all this Harinam going on. They would go out in the morning and come back for lunch, go out in the afternoon and come back, and days after days. And you can just see that you can go on YouTube and see if you find the Following Srila Prabhupada series. It's wonderful. It was put together by Yadabar. He and his wife were great heroes of documenting so much, through video as well as still photographs. And then she's a wonderful writer. She is the president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor now. She is the president. Wonderful. Very. I knew them back in Brooklyn and LA. So you'll see in 1970. In 1970, there was a big Rath Yatra in LA. There were nobody was going to India at that time. There were very few devotees in India. And there wasn't anything built up in Mayapur, Vrindavan, So the biggest festival in the movement was the San Francisco Rath Yatra, which had happened in 67, 68, 69, 70. Now this was a bigger one. Prabhupada was going to be there. And, the 60s had ended, but still there was a lot of 60s spirit in the 70s. So a lot of hippies were there, And you see the procession is huge. It's like 5,000, 6,000, young people dancing and chanting in front of it. How did Prabhupada do that? It's all coming from this chanting, and what you feel the contact of the Lord and the bliss and the prasadam and everything that's what Krishna consciousness is. So Krishna is now not going to speak about that here. He's going to try to convince Arjuna that yes, it's possible by abhyas. The word abhyas is practice, and this is in the second line here. Undoubtedly, it's very difficult. Mano durnigraham means difficult to control the mind, which is the basic thing. But it is possible by practice and by detachment. Now, the wonderful thing about the two things go together: jnana and vairagya. Jnana and vairagya. And we actually experience this all the time in material things without even any reference to Krishna consciousness. Just like Prabhupada points out, smoking cigarettes. It's such a nasty habit and self-destructive. What's the point? It's just. But the millions of people still smoke. And in Prabhupada's time, when he was in America, millions more smoked. This was before the campaign, to stop it. So eventually, I remember when they came up, I think it was the late 60s or early 70s, where they started putting that notice on the package, right? I haven't seen one for a long time, close up. But if I recall, cigarette smoking, maybe hazardous to your health, or is hazard, I think it maybe hazardous. So, and it's a big legal battle to do that, to force the companies to do that, because this is against their business plan, to convince people not to smoke. But it was obvious that it was damaging. So. And yet, so the knowledge is there now. Oh, now I know it's hazardous to my health. No, I'll become detached from that. That's the ideal. So that principle is there in Krishna consciousness as well. Knowledge is key. That ordinary things that we do that don't look so damaging, they may not be grossly sinful, but still they involve gross or subtle sense gratification. But now from reading the Bhagavad Gita that those attachments will cover your original consciousness, Krishna consciousness, and bring you back again for a life of birth, old age, for another session of birth, old age, disease, and death. That's how it works. He describes it very explicitly in the beginning of the 15th chapter. How the soul, eventually, the body is a machine. It breaks down, the physical body. So we have two bodies. We have the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. And all of these unfulfilled desires and ideas, how to enjoy, and all, they're located in the mind. So when the gross body dies, the mind and intelligence and ego are carrying the soul to the next body. It's already determined by higher forces what body we're going to get. because we have everything programmed. Krishna knows, he's in the heart. So he's guiding the whole thing, and you get another body. And if you have no tinge of Krishna consciousness, it's just mundane, you may not be an evil person, but you're not involved in it. Then you'll get a human body or perhaps a subhuman body. And you'll forget everything about this life, and you'll be living your life according to your particular body, and eventually you'll die there and start coming up automatically, and you'll get a human life again. And the human life, as I pointed out again and again, and the Shastra points out again and again, is the key. It's the only juncture by which we can cultivate this consciousness and get out of this syndrome of birth, old age, disease, and death. Now, when you come to chapter 13, near the beginning, there's a list of elements of knowledge that we need in order to advance in Krishna consciousness. And one of them is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. Anudarshanam means to always observe and be aware of, the evils or the difficulties of birth, old age, disease, and death. And this is what it means to be in this world. It's very sobering, because really, the first thing that you realize by, when you read the philosophy a little bit, it means that all the things that Hare Krishna, welcome, that we ordinarily take as sources of pleasure. They may be in different modes. We'll learn about the modes. That it may not be gross sinful activities. It may be very subtle. It may be thought of as actually good for you. This is wholesome enjoyment. Yeah, but still, that is in your mind when you die, and it'll bring you back again to another gross body for suffering. So Krishna consciousness enables us to turn away from the attractions of the material thing and become attracted to spiritual pleasure. And just like kirtan, it can be so pleasurable. The drums are playing in time, the kartals are playing in time. Actually, you play the kartals more in time than that little bell thing. We've got to work on the intonation of the song. But anyway, the sincerity is there. And it can be so enlivening. You don't know why, but something about that mantra, this contact high, we used to call it, everybody is dancing. So, and then if eventually it ends and you sit down, maybe there's a class or whatever, and you find your mind less likely to wander off to your old, attachments. There's been a slackening there. This is Krishna's blessing from within. He's there. He's watching us. He's listening. And the well-known verse in the 2nd chapter, 1st canto, Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna, Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna, Punya Shavana Kirtana, Ridyantaksto Yabadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. So Krishna's in the heart. And when he understands, oh, they're listening about me, they're hearing my holy name. You see? So he responds by starting to cleanse away the inauspicious things in the heart, which include all of these material attachments. And so it's a purification process. Also at the beginning of the series, there's a very important lesson from verse 6 to verse 21 of the 2nd chapter, 1st canto. And the 2nd verse of the lesson, he describes what is real Dharma. Because as human beings, we should be concerned about that. Because Dharma, as I was explaining, this is getting us closer, the definition of Dharma there, Savaipangsang Paro Dharmo, Yato Bhaktir Hokshaje. That is real Dharma, supreme Dharma, which evokes your natural devotion and love for the Supreme God, Krishna. The name uses is Hokshaja. It's very scientific. He's not talking about Krishna. He's not talking about Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan here. The name Adhokshaja is composed of 3 words: Adha, Aksha, and Ja. Aksha Ja means knowledge gleaned through the senses. Aksha means eyes, but it stands for all the senses, reading things and hearing and so forth. And this is how we get knowledge of the world. So the knowledge that we can get in that way is limited. And that's the very definition of transcendental, means beyond the scope of our material mind and senses. And if God is anything, he's transcendental. We can't see him, you know. Of course, Krishna makes himself available so we can hear him and see him, but basically in his spiritual form, we're too impure. So it says that the supreme Dharma is that which evokes our natural bhakti, our natural loving devotional service for the supreme transcendental Lord, who is Krishna. And what's the characteristic? Ahaituki and apratayata. Very important words. Hare Krishna. So ahaituki, the word hetu means cause. And ahaituki means without cause, or without material motivation. Because the natural, when you say unmotivated, you know this word unmotivated is pure devotional service. But is it really unmotivated? It's without any material motivation. We have a spiritual motivation, otherwise we wouldn't do anything. We want to become pure devotees, we want to get closer to Krishna, we want to, we want to escape from birth, old age, disease, and death. Those are all wholesome motives. But unmotivated or hoitiki bhakti means no material motivation. We're not even up to the point of mukti. This is kind of an advanced concept. That we just talked about birth, old age, disease, and death. We should want to get out of that, So that's a desire for mukti. That's okay, especially at the beginning, because you're very serious. This is a serious thing, and everyone in the world, you think you got it together, but as time goes on, you don't have it together. Your body is failing, and everything that you treasure is being threatened to be taken away from you. Krishna makes it very explicit in the 10th chapter. Mrityu sarva haras chaham. Who can argue with it? He says, as death, I take everything away. What do you have left? And all that money in the bank has a name on it, and that name is not your name, it's the name of the body. When the body goes, the money is back there, you can't take it with you. Everyone knows that. You can't take that with you, or anything else that you may be attached to, people or whatever. It's all gone. So what's left? Your consciousness. Your consciousness. If you've cultivated even some Krishna consciousness, this is the most auspicious thing for you. It will bring you back to a human form, and it will bring you back to a human body in which you can continue your Krishna consciousness. Anything material is left behind. You may be Bezos, or you may be some guy wandering around with a shopping cart on the street. You're going to leave the shopping cart, and Bezos is going to leave his $150 billion or whatever he's got, obscene amount of money. It's gone, and you're gone who knows where, So it's important in the beginning to be serious about getting out of birth, old age, disease, and death. But that's not the final goal of Krishna consciousness. We soon learn that if you can develop love for Krishna, that's already taken care of. I'll share a really far-out verse with you. This is Bilvamangal Thakur. Now, Bilvamangal Thakur wrote the Krishna Karnamrita. The very title of the book is amazing. Can I write a book? Suppose I write a little poem. I wrote a little poem. I'll title it Nectar for Krishna's Ears. Can I be so bold to think that Krishna will like to hear my poetry? Maybe he doesn't want to hear it. I can say I hope he likes it. But Bilvamangal Thakur, although he was physically blind, he was writing this poem either in Vrindavan or on the way to Vrindavan. Krishna was leading him along, and as he wrote the book, wrote the verses and chanted them, he saw Krishna smiling. He saw Krishna. Krishna Karnamrita. This book that I'm writing is nectar for Krishna's ears. You got to be pretty advanced to write a book with that title. Very famous book. Lord Chaitanya found it when he went to South India, and he brought that book back with him. He had it copied. And the other book he brought back, the Brahma Samhita, which I will share with you sometime. You weren't here. This is a long way back, and I gave a little course on the Brahma Samhita for memorizing it. At that time, I had a printer that worked. I printed out a bunch of copies of the book, and we were studying it verse by verse. That's another classic book. So here's the verse by Bilvamangal Thakur on this subject matter. Where does mukti fit in? So he says, Bhakti Bhaktis Tadara Bhagavanya Syad Daive Nanak Palati Divya Kishora Murti Mukti Swayam Mukulitanjali Sevate Sman Dharmartha Kama Gatayak Samayak Patiksha. It actually has the same meter as the Govinda prayers. Chintamani Pakadasad. Anyway, so he says Bhakti Swahi. So he's speaking to Krishna. if someone has very firm and serious and intense devotion for you, O Krishna, bhaktis tvayi stiratada Bhagavan, O Supreme Lord, yadisat, if that one can achieve that, then one will get the fruit. Is the fruit liberation? No. Daive bhaktis tvayi stiratada Bhagavan yadisa, daive nanak palati divya kishora murti. So palati means the fruition, just like a pala is a fruit, right? Patram pashvam palam. So what's the fruit? A vision of your beautiful adolescent form. That's the fruit. And as far as mukti is concerned, third line, mukti swayam mukalitanjali sevate sman. Now here is another mudra for us. I told you about Radharani's mudra. This is a mudra called Abhay Dan. Dan is gift, Abhay is fearlessness. Prabhupada's name, Abhay Charanaravinda, as a child. So you next time when the curtains open, if you stay for Arti, you look at Radharani's hand, it's like this. She's assuring us, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. You just worship me and Krishna, and we'll take care of it. Be free of fear. Very, very encouraging. So he's saying, Mukti Swayam. So another one is Anjali. This is called Anjali, you know? It's not exactly like the prayer in the church, which is closed. You know, you're praying for whatever you want, right? Whatever you need. But here, there's an offering in there. Often flowers. That's why it's Pushpanjali, right? When we offer, when one of our acharyas disappears, or the day, the anniversary, we'll have a Pushpanjali ceremony. So a Mukti herself is manifested. She's waiting at the door, and she's with this Anjali. How can I serve you? In other words, Mukti, you got Mukti. Mukti's covered. She's there. And then what are the other three? Dharma, Artha, Kama, right? And that's the last line. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Gatayak, Samayak, Patiksha. And whatever I need in the way of Dharma, Artha, or Kama, they're also at my bid. You know, I just need to develop that serious, pure devotion for you. So Mukti is not our primary aim. It comes naturally as a byproduct. But so what Krishna is saying here is that yes, it's difficult. He's agreeing with Arjuna, but it's possible with practice. But Arjuna will then plead, the practice is difficult for me. And we'll go on. We won't get to it tonight or this week, but maybe next week we'll read the final verse of the chapter where Krishna encourages Arjuna. Because Arjuna is pretty pessimistic. He says, well, I'm a fighter, you know. All right, I'll give up the fight and I'll go. I was just going to go beg in the villages, but okay, I'll go to the mountains and practice. But I don't think I can handle it. So I've given up my life as a kshatriya. You know, there's no kingdom there. I failed as a yogi. I'm like a riven cloud. I lost both things. This is his argument. So to encourage him, he says, don't worry. Yoginam napi sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktadamo mata. My opinion is that the greatest yogi is one who is always worshiping me with great faith and devotion, always thinking of me within the heart with great devotion. That's the greatest yogi, and that's Arjuna. He's a beloved friend of Krishna. He's always thinking, oh, what a relief. And so the next verse, the first verse of the 7th chapter, Krishna starts telling how, okay, now I'm going to tell you a much easier way that you can fix your mind on me. And some of you may be familiar with the Gita. And it's like you go through and you drink some water. And Krishna says, I am the taste of water. Oh, all I have to do is remember that verse. And now when I taste water, I'll think of Krishna. When I see the light of the sun or the moon, oh, that's Krishna. You know, the sound in ether, oh, so many sounds, but to speak of his holy name. I think anyway, he goes through all these different things that we experience. So that's me, because it's coming from my energies, you know, because he explains that. And so this is a beginner's way of making of seeing the Lord everywhere, of being able to think about him, because that's what the other yogis do, and try to think of Krishna all the time. Well, if everything in the world that you experience reminds you of Krishna, what's the problem? You see? But then the real thing is to develop a relationship with Krishna through service, and that's the next step. But the beginning bhakta is in better shape than the serious yogi, you know, who's developing these siddhis, because you can develop all these perfections, like light, you know, lighter than the lightest. You know, Prabhupada talks about it like it's not an imagination. He was. It was in Delhi, or he heard this story about someone who was in Delhi during the British Raj, you know, So Delhi's in northern India, pretty close to the Himalayas, not that far, So the yogis would sometimes wander down, come to the city, and they'd be stark naked. And the British, no, that's against the rules. So they arrested this yogi, put him in the jail. Next morning, he's on the street again. How'd he get out? Somebody must have let him out. They put him back in the jail. Next morning, he's out. He had the siddhi, anima siddhi, where he could reduce his size so he could get through the keyhole. It's for real. Then another one was probably prapti siddhi, where you can get whatever you want. Fort Knox, let's develop that. So I think this Prabhupada heard this story from a friend of his, but it's for real. So apparently, at that time, maybe now, was it Kandahar, somewhere in Kashmir, where the best pomegranates grow, something like that. So this yogi, he was with Prabhupada's friend or a friend of his father, and he asked, okay, what would you like? I have this, said, all right, I want some pomegranates from Kashmir. And so he'll go into the next room, into the bedroom, go to that room, and then on the bed is like a branch, a pomegranate branch with fresh pomegranates on it. And the yogis have these powers, what to speak of reading minds and all these things. So you can imagine that those cities can be a little bit tempting. Let me go to America, I'll make some gold dust, and I'll get a whole following. Before you know it, I'll be a millionaire, Anyway, the cities, here's another verse for you, then we'll go on. This is a Bengali verse. Lord Chaitanya says, who can really be peaceful in this world? So Lord Chaitanya says, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi, he says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. Ashanta means not peaceful. Always worried and, I've got so much, but I need so much more, right? So the Bhakta, the first line says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. There's a lot in that one line. It says, the Krishna Bhakta doesn't want anything material. Just like Raghunath Das Goswami, anything, anyway, he was the epitome of renunciation, of material things, but he was always at the highest happiness. So, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. The Krishna Bhakta doesn't want anything material, and therefore he's completely peaceful, But Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta. This covers every class of person. Bhukti is 99.9%. Sense gratification. Those who want sense gratification. Kami, they ardently desire it. Then there's the yogis who desire these siddhis. The second one is muktis. Those who want the liberation, personally. They're not interested in helping others. So that's the mukti kamis. And then there's the siddhi kamis, the yogis who can develop these things. That's also. Just think of Durvasa Muni. The story of Durvasa Muni. I found out what his name means, you remember? Can't live with him. He's such a disturbing person, So he has so many pastimes in the Bhagavatam, and he's always, why is he getting so much honor? Why is Ambarish this king? After all, I'm a great Brahmin, a yogi, and everyone is honoring him. He's just an ordinary king. Yeah, he's a devotee, but I mean... So he challenged him, this is a long story, and he was humbled by that, But he had other interactions like that. Very proud of his prowess, as a yogi. But he kept getting cut down when he interacted with the devotees. And so that's the Siddhi Kamis and the Mukti Kamis, those who are just after their own liberation. Prahlad, when we read his prayers in the morning class, if you come, the next chapter is the battle between Nrsimhadev and Hiranyakashipu, very dramatic. And after that, at Prahlad's prayers, wonderful prayers. And one of the prayers is very famous. He says, Prayena Deva Munayo Swava Mukti Kama. Swa means my own, Mukti Kama. I'm ardently desiring my own liberation. The hell with everyone else. That's not Bhakta. Swava Mukti Kama, Maunam Chatam Divijane Napararta Nishta. So what these lines means is, Prayena Deva, for the most part, O Lord, he's praying to Lord Nrsimhadev. Prayena Deva, for the most part, O Lord, Muniya, the sages, not necessarily Bhaktas, Muniyo, who are, the word Muni comes from silence. They practice silence a lot, but they're very wise. Swava mukti kama. But they're not bhaktas, they just want their own liberation. And therefore, maunam charanti, again, mauna, in silence, they wander amongst the Himalayan hills, in seclusion. Let me get away from these cities, forget it. Too hurly-burly. I'm going to quiet, So maunam charanti vijane, where there's no people. Naparartha nishta, not being at all determined to help others, to let them free. That's not bhaktas. The bhaktas is sarve sukha no bhavantu. Isn't there a phrase like that? Sarve, let everyone be happy, And then bhakta knows they can't be happy without Krishna. So he wants to give them Krishna. So maunam vijane naparartha nishta. But as for Prahlad, he says to Nrsimhadev, Nanyam maunam charanti vidane padartha nishta naitan vihaya kripana vimamuksha eko nanyam tvarasi sharanam brahmato anupashe. So, but my Lord, I cannot abandon all these poor people who don't have you, who are suffering in this material world, just after my own mukti. Because I know that there's nothing that can help them but you, and I have to give them you. In other words, I have to be the medium by which they can get Krishna consciousness. The Shringa is Krishna. So that's the mood of the devotee. Prabhupada perfectly exemplified. He was perfectly satisfied. He could have just stayed in Radha Damodar, chanted 64 rounds or 120 rounds, whatever, and been right next to the Yamuna River, a block away from the place where Krishna performed the rasa dance. There's a place there. What is it called? I forget. I got a little remnant from there. That's a little twig from one of the trees. But it's very, very auspicious. But he had the order. He had the mission given by his guru to try to take Krishna consciousness out of India. So he came to America in 1965. Absolutely. Sacrificing everything, almost had heart attacks on the way, and everything, and so many difficulties. But look at what he was able to do. We would never be sitting here if it wasn't for him. There'd be no book, you can imagine. So, Arjuna, Krishna will give this, it's certain, now Vairagya, let's just focus on that for a minute. Vairagya is key, right? And Vairagya and knowledge, jnana, go together. When you know something is bad for you, then you really want to become detached from it, even though you're addicted to it, right? That's the idea. So what Sutta Goswami says to the sages at the beginning of Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, 1st canto, the next verse, it says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahoitukam. Very, very important verse. So Vasudeva Bhagavati. Vasudeva is Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. It's another name for Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. By engaging in devotional service to Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, very quickly these two results come. Janayati. Janayati is the English word. It means generate. You can practically just know it. Janayat, Ashu, very quickly, Vairagyam. Detachment from material things, and knowledge. Knowledge of why you should be detached, and also knowledge of God, knowledge of Krishna. Ahoituke, automatically. They're just the processes of Bhakti Yoga automatically. One of the main processes is Bhagavad Gita class and Bhagavatam class, morning and evening. That's part of Bhakti. Prabhupada stresses hearing. Remember in the purport? Hearing. Hearing is all important. So reading is kind of hearing. Best to read out loud or to read with others, But so hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, and trying to follow the rules and regulations. That may be difficult at first, but become very easy. Much easier as Krishna gives you the blessings. So these things, Krishna that says here, Vairagena Chagriyate, it's possible. Yes, and by the process of bhakti, it becomes possible for anyone, including us. Otherwise, who's going to go off to the Himalayas? We don't want to go to the Himalayas. We want to try to help others to be Krishna conscious, right? So how you become a yogi, here in the middle of San Diego? You can be a yogi, but not that kind of yogi, Ashtanga yogi. All right, any discussion on these points? We'll resume on Monday with Arjun's response to Krishna's response. Finally, it'll come. Okay, You don't have to do that one. And then at the end, he says, Sarvadharma Parityajya, give up all these other things I told you, Dhyāna-yoga, Jnana-yoga, Karma-yoga. You just surrender unto me. Everything will be taken care of. There's this one, yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'll give you.
So Prabhu, if you go back home to Godhead, do you still chant there?
Of course. Yeah, it goes on eternally. The gopis, they're always chanting different names of Krishna, and the glories of Krishna. I was just thinking of one verse from the Govinda Lilamrita. It's a beautiful description in just a small verse of Krishna coming back from the forest of Vrindavan. Now, when you get into Krishna Lila, you realize how fraught that is. I mean, the gopis and Mother Yashoda, they've been separated from Krishna all day, every day. He's out there with the cows and the boys, and when is he coming back? When is he coming back? And so they have little devices, on the top of the houses where they can go up and see at a distance, and they'll say, "Oh, look, there's a cloud of dust out there. That must be Krishna with all the cows." And they're up there, and then they hear little hints of the flute, So so this verse describes their coming. So it says, the poetry is incredible. At the beginning and the end of each line, it rhymes. Can you do that, even in English? Anyway. Denu vrindam anamandamayantam, venu geetam amatam visvajantam, renu rushitatalakavantam, kenu vikshasamayurnamudantam. This is why Krishnadas Kaviraj, who wrote this book, as well as the CC, got the name Kaviraj, the king of poets. You can see, and so many verses like that. So it's a simple verse, very simple. Of course, you have to know the language. Denu are cows, vrindam are herds. So the herds of cows, Krishna's. Anumandam means very leisurely. Ayantam, following. Krishna very leisurely following his herds of cows as he comes back with the forest. And all the boys are there with their herds, they have big herds. So what is he doing? He's playing the flute. What else? Venu Gitam, the song of the flute. Venu Gitam Amatam Visrajantam. He's creating, he's emanating this nectarian flute song sound as he's very leisurely following behind the cows, who are also in bliss hearing that sound, they're fully conscious. And then what's happening, all that dust is being upraised by all that, it's called Braj Vraj. Vraja means dust, and Braja is short for Vrindavan, right? So Braj Vraj. It's very holy dust. I have a little urn that I took around all the holy places in Vrindavan when I went in 1975. That was my first trip. And I had Braj Vraj from different things. I'll give you a little, maybe put on your head. So that dust is all beautifully dusting his curly locks, which is swaying as he walks very gracefully, So that's Renu. So you have Denu, Venu, Renu. You see, that's the beginning. Denu Vindamanamantam Ayantam, Venu Gitam Amatam Visrajantam, Venu Rushitachalalakavantam. Avantam means the ends of the tips of his. So then what's the benefit of seeing this sight? Kenu. So the author says, Kenu, who indeed? Viksha, seeing this sight, Kenu Viksha Samayur Namodantam, would not enter into the state of the highest bliss. Mood is the word that means joy, and anta means the end of joy, the highest happiness. Who, seeing this beautiful vision of Krishna coming back, will not become blissed out, And the wonderful thing is, by chanting this and understanding the meaning and visualizing, you're seeing in your mind's eye, isn't it? So this is the wealth we have. And there's a whole set of prayers by the gopis in chapter 35 of the 10th canto. They're at home, churning butter and doing their other chores. Well, what are they doing? They're singing all the time of Krishna, see? And the same thing is Vama Baha Krtavama Kapolo Valgita Budadara Patavinam Komalangu Libadachita Margam Gopi Iri Yati Yatra Mukunda. So they're singing to each other, see? So Vama Bahu, I know because I play the flute. But he's got a long flute. He got some nice short flute, but he also has long ones. And he's apparently playing a long one because he's got the left shoulder on his left cheek. That's a long flute. Okay? So that's what they're visualizing. Vama Bahak, the Vama Kapolo, Voli Dabro. He's moving his eyebrows very, very attractively. Voli Dabro. Adarabha Devenam. He's put his flute to his lips. Adarabha Devenam. Adarabha Devenam. Komalangu Dibir. With his delicate fingers, he's stopping the holes. Kombalang with Ashrita Margam. Margamila holds. Ashtamagga Venugitam Vama Bahakata Vama Kapolo Volgita Buddharabata Venum Komalanga de Badashan Gopya Irati Yatamaga. Oh, gopis. So one gopi speaking, oh, gopis, listen, what happens when Krishna does that? Flying in the sky, Vama Bahu. It's hard to do it this way. Vama Bahakata Vama Volgita Buddharabata Venum Komalanga Badashan Gopi Irati Yatamakunda Vyomayana Vanitas Sahasiddhaya. So Vyomayana, in the sky, the demigoddesses and their husbands are flying, and they come down when they hear this attractive sound, the flute sound, and suddenly the ladies are a little embarrassed because they're becoming attracted to Krishna. They're right there with their husbands, and their clothes is loosening a little bit, and they say, "Oh my God, my husband's right here." But then Vishwanath Chakravarti also writes commentary. The husbands are also becoming attracted. They're really embarrassed because their wives are right next to them. So that's the first verse. There's like 20 pairs. They're in pairs of verses. But this is what you really want to absorb your mind in. What you can remember, and then you realize how attractive that can be. And wonderful to know that somehow we have a place in that pastime somewhere. We just have to become absorbed in doing, in hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, and doing what we know we should do, and we can become completely detached from all of this madness in the material world. And go back to Godhead. What else is there? Well, I'll give you a poem. I didn't do any poems yet. Okay. So this is one I wrote. There was a controversy somewhere. There is still a controversy about, did we fall from the spiritual world? Or have we always been here? Well, Prabhupada, he said, we definitely fell. Lord Chaitanya says, Patitam mam, I've fallen out here. Anyway, so where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity and adds his stupidity, enters to cupidity, he loses all capacity, and with it all, he loses all sagacity, and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoted to piety, he suffers in anxiety till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. Hare Krishna. I have a slideshow that goes, yeah, you can do the whole act, I have a slideshow that goes with it too. It's on Sundays. All right, one more, short one. Okay. Oh, here we go. This is a prayer I offer every day when I see Radha and Krishna. We greet the deities, right? There's Radha Giridhari. Pashupala vadinanandana vadametang moharati yuvam. Ambhavatu paneho bhave bhave. Ambhavatore vapadam brajeshu me. O Radha Krishna, children of the best of cowherd men, this single boon I beg from you again and yet again. In all the countless births my endless sins will make me meet. Let all my love flow toward your luscious, lustrous lotus feet. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All right. So now we can look forward to seeing their lordships in their night clothes.